I want to share from my feast that I've been having this week with the Holy Spirit. Um, and I pray that you see the patterns, because I've been looking at Genesis. And Genesis is full of patterns, and I haven't been drawn to Genesis much before. But after my last time of famine, that's where I've been. And the Holy Spirit has just given me new insights and just things that I've read forever, but now they actually mean something and I see something different. So I'll do one of them today, and maybe another video I'll talk about Enoch and the pattern that the Holy Spirit revealed there. So what I wanted you to see, and what I have seen is, I guess now I know the word for it, which came towards the end of the week, but it's about the dispensations of time. And the best way that I have found in understanding the end declared from the beginning, or the end and the beginning being so alike, are in the view of a menorah. And you'll see how the arms, one will connect to 7. The beginning and the end are like mirror images looking at each other, and so are the inner pieces of a menorah, with the center standing out. And that has been true if you look in the book of Revelation, for example, and you put just the 7 churches in the book of Revelation, because you know that they are the lampstand that has the fire of God in them. But you'll see it's church number 2 and church number 6. It's that little second loop that has the good churches, the churches that Jesus didn't have anything bad to say. And you'll see they're not some random churches. They are connected. And in the middle, because Jesus says, whatever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And because church 2 and 6 are that pretty loop that are connected together, you see Jesus is in the midst of them. And you'll see it, the patterns are really everywhere, to the point where sometimes when I'm done, I say, surely this was a book that was written way before we lived it, and we're just playing it out because of the perfection in which it all works out. So today I want to look, so I have the menorah in mind, and we're thinking number 1 and number 7. But we're looking at a repeated process. And on the first day, day 1, God said, let there be light. So 1 represents light. Whenever there is a new dispensation, a new beginning of sorts, it will start with number 1. Therefore, it starts with light. Let there be light. And I'm going to establish that by looking at the flood of Noah. After the Lord creates, creation happens in Genesis 1-2, and we see it with the beginning of let there be light. It goes all the way until the destruction, where this world is just destroyed by water and everything is covered by water. And from there we see that where God said let there be light, Noah opens a window. And the window is not to the side, only the door was on the side, but the window is up above. So Noah opens a window, and now you have the light coming in, and we're beginning this process of let there be light. And then we see that the next thing God did is he divided the waters from the water. So you see in the flood of Noah, as now you're seeing the peaks of the mountains, as the waters are going down, you see, or when there is water everywhere, you're seeing just the ark of Noah, which is dividing the waters from the waters. There's waters below, there's waters above, and only the ark of Noah is in the middle as the dry place. And you see it in the second day of creation, when God divided the waters from the waters. He created a firmament, which he called heaven, to divide the waters from the waters. So you see that firmament parallels Noah's ark, which was that, call it the firmament, which that place which was dividing the waters above from the waters that were below. And then on day 3, we see that the waters were gathered together for the dry land to appear. And we see it in Noah's Ark also, like the waters begin to go down and they're going into rivers and seas and the ocean, and the dry land is beginning to appear. So you see that God is creating things in that same pattern. Obviously, it's not a copy paste. God's doing something new each time, but you see the pattern of God's creation. And then in Genesis 1 and 2, I believe you're saying that the darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the water. So now you see darkness over the face of the deep, and here comes this raven. And ravens, as far as I know, they're black as could be. And here is this darkness, this raven that is moving over the face of the deep. And then you see the dove representing the Holy Spirit that is moving over the face of the waters. So you begin to see how God has the same attributes and elements used in one and used in another one. It has, there's a beginning and an end to one dispensation, and now the second one with Noah opening the window is the beginning of the next in a similar pattern. And as I was thinking about it, and meditating, the Holy Spirit said, like, does it remind you of Revelation 4:1 when a door was opened in heaven? So now you go from like Noah opening that window, which was above, think of it as a window in heaven, and then in Revelation 4 you see like, okay, John sees a door was opened in heaven, and the Holy Spirit made it click. My friends, that is another dispensation that is starting when that door is open in heaven and the light comes in. We know heaven is a place of light, and that light is coming through that door and is the beginning of a new dispensation, which Sister Donna had a video a few days ago, and she was talking about the dispensations, and I said, I want to know, because it was clicking with me, because I think I'm hovering over those dispensations. So later that night, I asked the Holy Spirit, like, Lord, I want to understand the dispensations. And he brought it all together because they were connected to begin with. And I want to show you I thought there were 7. The Holy Spirit showed me one more I was missing today. It's 8. So to the best of my knowledge, there's 8. If there's actually 12 and I only know of 8, please share them with me. Share what the Holy Spirit reveals to you as we go through. But I want to show you how for each dispensation, they all begin with light, because they all begin with a number 1. So obviously we have the first one, which is when God said, let there be light. Sister Donna called that like the dispensation of innocence. But let there be light. There's our first beginning. Then we have the second one where Noah opened the window. It's a beginning of a new thing that God has made. The next time we see the light is when the dispensation of the law comes. And here we have this pillar of fire by night. We have this light, and we know, I won't go into that Sister Donna will share when the Holy Spirit leads her to, but we see the pillar of fire by night. We see the beginning of the dispensation of the law was given with this light having appeared. Then we see in the wise men see the star, and here's a light in the night sky, in the light of the world. Jesus himself came as a light into the world, and then we're looking at the fourth one. And we know the law and prophets were until John, so that's the beginning of our little loop. And then grace and truth came by Jesus Christ, and that's the beginning of the next dispensation of grace, which came with Jesus being the light coming into this world, which even had a physical light, the light that was the star. So now, the fifth one that the Holy Spirit showed to me this morning is in 2 Corinthians 4:6, where it says, for God who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, remember that was our 1, has shined in our hearts the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So the fifth dispensation is this, the light of God shining in us. It is a thing that is not done in the physical realm, but the light has shined inside us. And that's differentiating. Like, there was a dispensation of time when Jesus just walked on the earth. That was when the bridegroom was literally here with us. But it's only after his death, when the Holy Spirit came down, that the light of the knowledge of the gospel came into our hearts. And therefore, that is a separate dispensation. And that's the one that I was missing that the Holy Spirit showed me. So that's 5. Number 6, we see it when a door is open in heaven. For a door to be open in heaven, and that was the first trumpet. So we have like 1, the light with the door open in heaven, but it's also the first trumpet, has a number 1 associated with it. And then we see the next one, number 7, is when Jesus returns like lightning from the east to the west, when he says, don't go, he won't be in the desert, he won't be in a secret room, because when Jesus comes, everyone will know it. As the lightning goes from east to west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. So here we have it. It's the beginning of a new dispensation when Jesus will be on the earth for 1,000 years, ruling and reigning here. That's number 7. And then number 8, we see it in the New Jerusalem, where it talks about that there's no need for the sun or the moon, because the Lamb will be the light thereof. The Lamb will be the light. And that is a new dispensation. That is our new life in the new city with no end. And obviously, for every single one of these ones, there's a corresponding 7. If there's a beginning, there's an end before the next one can begin. And that's the part where I'm looking out to see, like, hey, what were the ending? Some of these I'm thinking out loud, some I hope that you will dig into and maybe the Holy Spirit will reveal to you. But obviously, let there be light was ending with the flood and the destruction. So we can see the patterns of Enoch. We can see the patterns of Noah, of how God closed that age down. We see Noah open the window and it goes all the way up until they're about to receive the law. Is that when they left Egypt? Was that the destruction of the firstborn in Egypt? I don't know, but there's a 7. I know there's an ending in there somewhere. The law and the prophets, the dispensation of the law, was until John, because in Matthew 11:13 it says that the law and prophets were until John. Then we know that there's this grace and truth that came by Jesus Christ. There's obviously a dispensation until he is ascending into heaven. The light of the gospel within us, which has an end. I think it's tied to Enoch, but I won't go into Enoch right now. But actually, I'm looking okay at time, I might. And then we have Jesus returning like lightning from east to west. But we know he'll be on this earth. But then we also know that the earth and everything on it will burn. So this earth will have a standard end when it'll burn down. And the New Jerusalem, there's no ending to that. So for everyone, there is a 7. There is a winding down and a closing down of it. Now, I'm going to talk about Enoch. So look, I think I have a little bit of time. So, Enoch was great. And what makes Enoch great is that you read that genealogy in the book of Genesis 5. And everybody has the same pattern. They live, they have a child, they live and have more children, they die, and so on and so on. And you get to Enoch and it says that Enoch lived for 65 years. And then he had a child. And then Enoch walked with God for 300 years. So the obvious questions, and then God took him, and he was no more because God took him. The obvious question is, like, what did Enoch do so differently that it wasn't called living, it was walking with God? And I said, Lord, what does it mean to just not live? And the Holy Spirit answered that is when the word says, I was crucified with Christ, and I live, but it's no longer I who live. Enoch is representing us as the body of believers who are crucified with Christ, who live. But it's no longer them who live, it is Christ who lives in us. And the life that we're living in the faith in Jesus Christ, who died and gave his life for us. And that is who Enoch is representing. It's representing a people that have died and lived, but it's no longer them that live. They're just walking with God. And from there, we looked at Enoch. It was 300 years. And I love numbers. I have the Hebrew alphabet, which also talks about numbers, but the letters that goes with the Hebrew alphabet for 300 is Sheen. It's like this W. Looks like a W, but it's representing teeth. It talks about strength. It talks about victory. And we see the number 300 when Gideon picks the 300. Well, God picks him for Gideon for battle. It's representing victory and overcoming. We see it when it's talking about some of the really strong men of David, and 2 different ones, like were ones that like fought against 300 people at a time and they were victorious. So it has this like aspect of there's a battle and there's a victory. But also the number 30, just take a 0 off. It talks about maturity, and I'll get to that now. Actually, the number 30. Science will get there if it hasn't, and I think it might have gotten to it. A man is fully mature at 30. There's something, science will prove it if they haven't, that people are emotionally mature from a decision-making perspective. They've reached that stability and maturity at 30. So you look at number 30 in scriptures, and we see that at 30 is when David became king. At 30 is when Joseph became ruler over Egypt. At 30 is when Jesus began his ministry. So the number 30 is associated with this maturing authority. And when we look in the book of Ephesians, where it talks about becoming fully mature, which I don't have the Bible open. I'm not gonna shuffle through it now. But it talks about that God has given us the fivefold ministry, and talks about the apostles and the prophets and the teachers. It says for the perfecting of the body, until we've all reached until we're mature man, until we've reached the height, like the measure of the fullness of like the stature of Christ. It's like talking about this fully grown, mature human. And so we're no longer children tossed to and fro by every wind and wave of doctrine. And that perfecting, that in the real life, not spiritual, that's 30. It's that place of like fully grown maturity, not tossed to and fro. It talks about maturity. So okay, it makes sense that from number 30, just one short of 300, like we're talking about this like fullness. But also if you look at the number 3, there's association of perfection with the number 3. When Jesus calls that man a fox, when Herod wanted him to go, and Jesus says, tell that fox that I will do healings today and the day after, and then all will be perfected. There you go, Luke 13:32. Go and tell that fox, behold, I cast out devils and do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day it shall be perfected. So the third day also comes with this idea of perfection. So if you look at 3, you look at 30, and you look at 300, and you see perfection, you see maturity, you see victory and overcoming. And Enoch walked with God for 300 years until he got to that place and God took him. Now, when I was reading that, the Holy Spirit led me to look at the word took in Hebrew, because I have the alphabet, I have the letters, I have the book, and the word for took, and it's the word that says God took Enoch and he was no more, but also the same word that is used when God took Adam and put him in the garden. And the word for took, which is lakash, and it's 3 characters. The first one is El, which is number 30, which is a staff. So think of a shepherd's staff, and think about the number 30. We talked about David, we talked about Joseph, we talked about Jesus. We talked about the authority that comes with the shepherd and having a staff. It's not it's this idea of like he's taking care of the sheep, but he also has authority over them. So that's the first letter, is like this number 30, which is 3, is the number of perfection, divine perfection. We look at 10. If you look at 3:10, which is what makes number 30, 3 is divine perfection, 10 is ordinal perfection, and the letter L, or where the number 30 is the 12th letter of the alphabet. So you have all of the numbers associated with perfection, 3, 10, and 12, that are represented in this letter L, Lamed, which is the staff with number 30. So we're talking about like divine perfection, ordinal perfection, and governmental perfection, all encapsulated in what is the number 30, and which is the first letter in here. And then we have Kif, which is 100, which is the back of somebody's head. It's like what you see when somebody's walking away from you. And the third letter is the letter Chet, which is number 8, and it's the pictograph representation is a fenced-in garden. So here you have a sanctuary, like which is think of the Garden of Eden, right? You have like a 30. You see the back of somebody's head as they're leaving, because they're going into this sanctuary, or this fenced-in garden, which where God put Adam. And you're thinking like, yeah, God took Enoch, and he put him in a sanctuary. He put him in a fenced-in garden, if you want to call it that. Like he took him, and God took Adam, and he put it in that sanctuary. And this is from this word took. I believe that by the power of the Holy Spirit, that Adam was 30 years old when God took him from the earth and put him in that garden, because of what the number 30 represents, because it is the fullness, it is perfection, it is full maturity. And because Jesus, when he began his ministry, he was 30. And we have the first Adam and the last Adam. And I really believe, based on just the words and the clues that God gave us in the word took, that Adam was taken into the garden when he was 30. And the 300, I believe that this Enoch representing the people who no longer they that live, but Christ lives in them, who are walking with God. We see them in Revelation 12. That is a dispensation that will end before that Revelation 4:1, when the door opens in heaven and begins a new dispensation. The dispensation will end. And that's where we see the man-child that is cut up to God and his throne. In the same way as Enoch was cut up, and he was taken to this garden and this sanctuary, which is, I believe, where the people represented by Enoch will be taken. And the 300 is thinking, Lord, if 300 is battle and victory and war, how does that associate with Enoch? And you'll see in Revelation 12, when it talks about the man-child was cut up, immediately it says, and there was war in heaven, and Satan fought, and Michael fought, and then Satan gets kicked out, and he goes after the woman, and so begin the second half of the tribulation period. But you see that, like, when the man-child is cut up, there is war in heaven, and I believe that 300 right there that we're seeing, because Enoch is a pattern of this group, it's representing that battle that will take place in the victory of the church, the victory that God will give us over the powers of darkness, are represented in the pattern of Enoch. Because God put his patterns in the beginning, put his patterns in the end, and it'll be as in the days of Noah. I'm going to stop here before I start rambling on. But the patterns are amazing. I wish you could taste and see. And I encourage you to dig in, to taste and see the beauty of his word. Just after having that, like, 2-3 weeks of famine, when the Holy Spirit was just not giving me any revelation knowledge, I've seen and I've remembered the dryness of reading the word and just as a locked door. And that's a little bit of appreciation for me for what's on the other side when you look and you do not see, and I can sympathize with that. And I want to encourage you to just keep pressing in, pray and ask the Holy Spirit to lead you, because I think once you taste that tiny little bit of the revelation knowledge of him putting pieces together, you fall in love with it. You will fall in love with this word. And I pray that the Holy Spirit will give you that desire. Just dig into one of these little things that I've mentioned. Take the word, follow it, draw the picture, whatever it'll take for you to just see it become alive in you. And I pray that the Holy Spirit uses that to just put that hunger, that desire for the things of God that are in this word. The Holy Spirit is just amazing. Talk about a good teacher. So I pray you're blessed and encouraged. May the Lord be with you and bless you.